On the outskirts of Pah-Ute County, Arizona, at the foot of a hill drowning in dusk and dust, lay an abandoned graveyard. Surrounded by wild sagebrush and thorny bushes, it seemed forgotten even by death itself. Among the crooked crosses and cracked tombstones lived Roy Bennett, a weathered old gravedigger, about whom dark rumors had long circulated across the county. People whispered that he had buried his wife alive. Nobody knew whether it was true, but those who had met Roy face to face readily believed the grim tale. Roy himself neither confirmed nor denied anything. He was an outsider, avoided the living, and his silence only strengthened people's belief that something was very wrong with him. Roy didn't care about their opinions. It was as if he was safeguarding his own secret, never intending to share it. One evening, as dark clouds slowly covered the sky, Roy noticed a small figure approaching along the path leading to the cemetery. Squinting into the deepening twilight, the old man saw clearly a boy about 14 years old, thin, weary, and covered in road dust. The boy dragged a cart carrying something heavy, wrapped in an old blanket. Coming closer, the boy stopped silently, looking at Roy. The old man immediately understood what was hidden in the blanket. "Who is it?" the gravedigger asked in a hoarse voice, long unused to conversation. "My father," replied the boy quietly, lowering his gaze. "He was hanged by lawmen in the neighboring county." Roy didn't answer immediately. He merely nodded, turned away, picked up an old shovel leaning against the fence, and quietly said, "Follow me." He walked towards an empty plot of land, scattered with small stones and dry grass. The boy followed behind him slowly. "Other places refused me," the boy continued, looking down at the ground. "They said he doesn't belong among decent folk. I didn't know where else to go." Roy stopped and looked at the teenager. "What's your name?" "Sam," the boy replied. "Sam Collins." The old man frowned slightly. "So your father was Jesse Collins?" "Yes," Sam said, surprised. "You knew him?" Roy nodded again, slowly digging. He worked deliberately, stretching the moment, though the ground was soft after recent rains. His face was on wanted posters for a long time. Everyone in the county knew his name. Folks said he wasn't exactly a righteous man, though I didn't know him personally. After a while, breathing heavily and leaning on the shovel, Roy looked at Sam again and suddenly asked, "Was your father good to you?" The boy froze for a second, then shrugged. "He was a bandit, mister. People feared him. Sometimes I feared him too, but he was the only family I had." Roy looked thoughtfully into the freshly dug hole. "You know, kid, the ground has its own truth. People love to judge who's good and who's bad, but down there," he pointed downwards, "everyone is equal." "Is it true you killed your wife?" Sam suddenly asked quietly, immediately realizing that the question had slipped out unintentionally, but it was too late. Roy froze, lowered his gaze, and remained silent for a long time, deciding whether he should speak. Eventually, he shook his head gently. "No, of course not. I loved her deeply. She was the only light in my life. I was incredibly lucky to have her. She never wished for a better life, always stayed faithful, tolerated me just as I was." Roy took a deep breath, suppressing his emotions. "One day disaster struck. I went into town, got drunk, thought I had time to fix everything. But that day the earth trembled. There was a landslide. When I realized the danger, I rushed back home, knowing I was already too late. The earth doesn't forgive lateness. The house collapsed and fell, taking her with it. I couldn't help her, couldn't save her." A heavy silence settled. Sam listened carefully, lips tightly pressed, not daring to interrupt. Maybe your father was bad, Roy continued, looking at Sam. But if you're here, it means there was something good in him. Maybe forgiveness isn't for him. Maybe it's for you. So you don't carry his sins all the way to your own grave. You understand what I'm saying, son? I think I do, Sam replied quietly, raising his eyes to Roy for the first time. For the first time in many years, the gravedigger smiled faintly, then continued digging. When the grave was ready, they carefully lowered the body into the ground. Roy removed his hat, quietly uttering a few farewell words, and Sam, looking at the old man, silently followed his example, removing his hat and bowing his head. After filling the grave, Roy took a small wooden plank and carved a simple inscription. He was loved. He stuck it into the earth, nodding at Sam. The boy silently stared at the inscription, his expression gradually softening, as if a heavy burden finally slipped from his shoulders. He extended his hand to the old man. Roy shook it firmly and warmly. "Thank you," Sam said softly. "And thank you too," Roy replied. "You helped me today more than you realize." The teenagers slowly walked back down the road, disappearing into the night. Roy stood for a long time, watching him go. Then, for the first time in many years, the gravedigger lifted his gaze to the starry sky, took a deep breath, and quietly said, "Well, that's it. Maybe it's finally time for me to let go." And for the first time in many years, the night above the hill was quiet and bright. Dear friends, if this story touched your heart, please support it with a like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment about your thoughts on Roy and Sam, or perhaps you have your own story you'd like to share. See you next time on this channel, where forgotten stories of the Wild West come to life.